Well, percenters, welcome back. Coach Shami here. Defensive mechanics or techniques, 3 reasons why you're getting beat on defense. Let's go.
Well, today I'm going to tell you the 3 reasons why you get beat on defense. Alright, defense is an incredibly important part of the game, and if you're a liability on defense, your coach is probably going to sit you on the pine. So today what I want to do is talk about some of the reasons why you're getting beat on defense. That way you can correct it and get more playing time. But
you can be a defensive liability. I always talk about risk management, how big of a liability, and it's always off-centered or balanced out by how much offense you provide. So what's your effectiveness on the floor? Do you add defensively, and how much do you add offensively?
Also, we want to make sure you're scoring more points. So if you click the top link in the description down below, I'll give you instant free access to my Instant Buckets workout. This is my quick 5-minute workout that's absolutely developed to turbocharge your in-game scoring average, because we're working on action about that for a second. On defense, we're taught most of the time that we need to slide. And we need to slide, right? We've all been to a camper clinic before where we stand in a line and a coach points left and a coach points right, and we all do this and we all do this, and it's all great, right? That might have worked in the 1950s for everybody, but that's not today's game. Players are too fast, too skilled, too athletic. So
over sliding, interesting.
the biggest mistake a lot of players make is they overslide. They feel like the only way they can play defense is to slide to stay in front of people. That's not true. To stay in front of people, you need to be able to turn, run, and cut off. Let me say that again. Turn, run, and cut off. So if I'm starting to slide with somebody and it looks like they're starting to go by me, instead of trying to keep it sliding in front of them, if they start to beat me over the edge, I'm going to turn, run, and then try to cut them off and change directions, right? So the whole key is, as soon as you think that you might be getting beat, you've got to beat that offensive player back to a spot. And so if you can turn, run, and cut off, already you're going to be a much more dynamic defensive player because you can move a lot faster on the court. All right?
I agree with this. You have to be able to turn, run sideways, not completely run. You have to be able to move your hips and lower body differently from your upper body. A lot of times you're going to get contact up top, so you can use your upper body, but you got to be able to move, slide, turn, swivel your hips. Not necessarily going to jump to a spot and cut them off, but you have to be able to slide, recover, and get back into a slide.
All right, so the next thing that gets a ton of players beat on defense is following the basketball. So most of your work defensively is actually done when your player doesn't actually have the basketball. So what happens all the time is, like, let's say my offensive player's here, they got the basketball, I'm D'ing them up, it's all great, they pass the ball out, right? What most defensive players do, and the reason why a lot of players get beat, is they go, okay, my guy doesn't have it anymore, he's not a threat, and then they just follow the basketball wherever it goes on the paint. And because of that, their offensive players moving, they're cutting, they're screening, they're doing things behind their back. And so the defender has to react in a split second, and a lot of times can give up buckets. We see it all the time. Somebody will go to help side, they won't see their man, all of a sudden he cuts up, gets a wide open shot. Or maybe they're looking at the basketball over here, their man backdoors and gets a layup, right? So the key that we always like to talk about is see man and ball. See man and ball. At all times, I want to use my peripheral vision, so I'm keeping an eye on my man, and I'm keeping an eye on the basketball. Let's say the basketball's in the complete opposite corner and my man's here. I might have to drop a little further into help side so I can...
They call that pistols.
Still see both of them, just like that. Man and ball. If I'm looking at ball, my man's cutting. If I'm looking at just my man, the ball can be doing something different. So if you can see man and ball at the same time, you're going to be much more dynamic on defense, and you'll be a much better communicator for everybody else.
Yeah, you have to be able to see man and ball, but I always say you got to be in, a closeout distance or at least contact.
The next thing that kills players on defense is a low defensive IQ. And what I mean by that is, it doesn't matter how you move, it doesn't matter how athletic you are. If you can have a high basketball IQ on defense, you can become a much better defender. And by that, I mean things like this. Number one, scouting. You got to know what...
Defensive IQ is huge. In high school, scouting is not a thing.
Players are great at. Unless you're just playing like some random open gym that you've never seen the players before, you're going to start knowing tendencies. If you're playing, the same team.
So I talk a lot about like risk management. Risk management.
The same teams on tournaments. You're going to start to notice tendencies that players like to do. And so what you need to do is you need to actively be a scout inside of your brain. A massive mistake that a lot of younger players make is they just go out and play, and they don't really think about what the other players on the court are doing. But if I'm guarding people and I go, okay, hey, I know he really likes to step back to his left, or I know that he really likes a hesitation drive to his right. So what you can start doing is you can start building profiles for different players, and they become so much easier to guard once you know what they like to do, right? So unless it's just some like random open gym that you've never been to before, that makes it a little bit harder. But for every other scenario, you need to know what players like. Now check this. I was coaching like a little 7th grade team a few months ago, and we were playing this other team. And they had a really nice little guard who was pretty shifty, could shoot from the outside, right? He hit like 3 step backs in a row where he hesitated with his right hand, crossed over, and stepped back to his left, right? After 1, you're like, okay, that's fine. After 2, you're like, he kind of likes doing that move. So the 3rd one should never happen, right? Because as a defender, you should know, hey, that hezzy step back is something that he's looking for all the time. And what you're going to end up noticing is most players are super one-dimensional. Most players have 1 or 2 moves that they really like to do. And so if you can sit on that and have a high basketball IQ and kind of be that in-game scouter for yourself, you can automatically become a better defender without even doing any conditioning, any strength training, or anything, that has to do with your athleticism. All right, and don't forget, if you want to...
I don't know about that, man. You're definitely gonna need to be in great condition,
turbocharge your scoring,
and you're definitely gonna need to work out.
Make sure you click the top.
Basketball defense techniques. These aren't any techniques. These are some strategic things. And how far does he go down into the hole is strategic. Depends on how advanced you are as a player. Step backs, hezzies. Can you sit on certain things? There's discipline, and there's foot position. There's body position. So this is pretty general stuff. In general, it's pretty good to understand what a player can do, but a lot of AAU, you have no idea who you're playing against. So you have to give up something. If you can take away both things, like a right and a left, then you're just the much better athlete, and you're waiting for that player to make a mistake. It depends on what level you're at. All offensive players, really, really great offensive players, can abuse any one-on-one defender. A lot of times offense can be so great that one can beat 5 guys. So your job as a defender really is to make that offensive player's life very, very difficult. Make them do things they're uncomfortable with. So general principles that you can kind of use: if they're right-handed, you can force them left. So forcing them left means don't let them go back to the right. The defensive slide drill, where players just slide to cones at 45-degree angles and stuff like that, it trains a player to just open up their hips every single time. I don't want to get too far down into the hole without visual evidence, but this is a decent video. But there's no real techniques. It's some basic strategy, and might be useful if you're high school or better. You should know better. And if you don't, let me know. I'll try to make a better video with some actual clips and stuff like that of me coaching. All right, guys. Until next time, take 14 minutes, 24 seconds, or 1% of your day to get better. Peace.